Today on CityCast Austin, the Texas House Democrats are back, and it's only a matter of time now before lawmakers pass the new redistricting map. And y'all, it is going to dramatically alter who represents this longtime liberal city. But as we all know, Austin is changing. So does it actually make sense for our members of Congress to change too? It's Tuesday, August 19th. I'm Eva Ruth Moravec, in for Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. Hey y'all, before we get into today's conversation, which I promise is riveting, I have a little favor to ask. CityCast is doing our annual listener survey, and it would really help us out if you gave us your feedback. Even if you took it last year, we'd really be grateful if you take it again, since we can't use last year's data anymore. So please go to citycast.fm/survey to take it. It's only 7 minutes long, I promise, we timed it. And when you take it, you'll also be eligible to win a $250 Visa gift card and CityCast Austin swag. So go to citycast.fm/survey and take our survey. Hello, I am here with Anthony Holm, a longtime Republican consultant here in Austin. He's worked on campaigns for Attorney General Ken Paxton, Governor Rick Perry, and others. And he's a communication strategist, a lawyer, and an author, and now a radio show host. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Austin.
Good morning. So we are here in Austin, and we're talking today about redistricting, kind of the conservative perspective, goals, all of that around redistricting. So I want to know here in Austin, where things will be very different when the new maps are implemented. We'll have 3 new Republican districts and 1 district pitting Greg Casar against Lloyd Doggett. Austin's always kind of been a liberal city. So how does that feel? Like, how can Republicans justify redrawing the lines right here in Austin to make them, more leaning more Republican than Democrat?
Well, this is pretty common, actually, and Austin's growth necessitates a change. Each U.S. House district is approximately 750,000 people. It's a proportionate mandate. Of course, Austin is, what are we at, about 1.2 million, the metro area, really 2.2 million. So it's bringing it into parity with San Antonio, which has 6 different U.S. House members. Dallas has 5, Houston has 5. I think it's a function of growth, just straight away. So none of the states should focus on partisan compaction of districts, but of course we know that's very much the case in California, Illinois, New York, and about to be in Texas. We've been one of the best actors, I believe, relative to cutting lines between D's and R's nationally. And if the map that was proposed actually passes, then it'll just bring us into parity with Illinois, New York, and California.
You said we've been one of the best at parity. What do you mean by that? Go tell us more about that.
Happy to. So in Texas, generally Republicans win with about 55% of the vote and Democrats with 42 to 45. So call it a 10-point deviation between the two, delta, so be it. And our U.S. congressional delegation is about 65% Republican and 35% Democrat. So there's about a 10% overage between the number of Republican U.S. House members who come from Texas versus the presidential vote, which I think is the bellwether. But you look at a place like, let's look at Illinois, for example, right? It's the same. Democrats get about 55%, Republicans get about 40%. Yet Illinois is split 82% Democrat. California is very similar. So here's what I believe happens, my opinion. The courts still enforce racial gerrymandering. And it's modified,
banning
right?
It, saying that you cannot draw districts based on race.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Because, and this is, I believe, grown over the last 60 years or so, 50 years or so, in large part because it was access to vote, right? And it was the inability to be counted. Like, everyone shall be counted equally. So what does that mean? These are fundamental tenets that we all live by and believe in the Constitution. So So the Voting Rights Act has shifted over the last many, many decades. And what has taken its place from my perspective is raw partisan D versus R, Democrat versus Republican gerrymandering. So in California and New York and Illinois, these big states that send lots of congressmen to the US House, they've gerrymandered 80-20, just top to bottom. And Texas has been, in this most recent one, 65-35. But what that does is of the 435 US House members, it really changes that delta.
So because the Democrats are doing more of it, the argument is that Texas has to catch up to that to make things more equal?
Equal at the U.S. House. I'm not hearing Republicans. It's the strongest messaging. I mean, basically, look, the Democrats taught Republicans how to do this, right? Like, shame on the Republicans for not doing it.
That's a wild, I mean, I haven't heard that perspective very much. And it's just interesting to think like, Austin, I think doesn't identify, like, I hear you with the 65 to 55%, but like, Austin has always been this blueberry,
Sure.
so-called, in the tomato soup. The most recent presidential election, there were more conservative voters, more people did support Trump here in Travis County than had previously. But, it's still overwhelmingly Democrat, right? So the idea that there could be these new Republican districts representing this place that's always been seen as, this other kind of ideal. And even the data from the most recent presidential election shows it hasn't changed that much to change these districts, to combine these two into one and create these new Republican districts. So I don't know. I mean, it just still feels a little bit like, like what's going on there?
Well, so Travis County is about 70-30, 70 D, 30 R's. So if this were race-based, right, the 30% would say, hey, I'm not represented, and have a valid argument. But it's not. It's party affiliation based, just straight up. And those 30% probably still feel like they're not represented. But we don't look, we being the legal system, we being honorable, honest policymakers, we don't look at a single city or a single county.
If you're not supposed to look at city or county, how big of a perspective are we supposed to be having?
Statewide perspective, number one. And number two, along contiguous communities, right? Like you couldn't build a district that didn't touch in some way all the way through. You couldn't have two little lakes that were not connected.
Okay.
Some of the legal principles and standards. And then you try to keep communities together, right? And how do you define a community? That's a fair interpretation, I think. Is it a county? Is it a city? Is it an ethnic block? Is it liberals in Travis County versus Republicans in Travis County who tend to live on the west side and to the north? You know, how it's spread out. We can see that and map it by precinct. But fundamentally, Austin or Travis County has been, as you, what'd you call it, the
Which
blueberry?
Which doesn't make sense. Yeah, it's the blueberry and the tomato soup, but it's like, who's doing blueberries and tomato soup?
But nonetheless, maybe
gross.
We keep it weird. We're Austin. We'll keep it weird. Why not? Right?
We need a new analogy.
We grew from one congressman because we were just that size to two. And now we have two Ds, and the metro area is really about 2.2 million folks. That's just how it is. And there aren't very many examples around America, and certainly not in Texas, where you have a contiguous group of 2 million people living in a metro area, and you don't have multiple congressmen from different parties.
So 2 is not enough for us anymore in this metropolitan area. So now
not in the metropolitan area. If you want to say the city proper, yes, because each one has about 750. And iBook, right. Austin City is like 1.2, but really it's about 2 to 2.2 in the metro area.
Saturday morning is my favorite day of the week. It's the day I get to sleep in and lounge. And let me tell you, since I've gotten the Cozy Earth sheets, relaxing has become one of my favorite pastimes. Now, I've talked a lot about how the temperature regulating sheets guarantee you a comfortable night's sleep, but they're also great for summer mornings when you're just not quite ready to get out of bed and face the hot day. Now, of course, I have to mention you can grab some sheets risk-free with the Cozy Earth 100-night sleep trial. And if you try them and you don't love them, you can return them hassle-free. but I don't think you're going to want to. So head to cozyearth.com, use my code CozyAustin for 40% off. And if you get a post-purchase survey, make sure you let them know you heard about Cozy Earth right here. Because your bed should be more than a place to sleep. It should be your happy place. Cozy Earth makes that possible.
So the criteria are like keeping communities together. It's not making islands, having contiguous districts. It's also the number 750,000 constituents. So like one thing that strikes me looking at the Austin or the Travis County maps are these like long fingers, so what's the connection? How do you say that someone in, far East Texas is in the same community as someone in like Northeast Travis County, or wherever? I'm not looking at the map, so that could be totally off. But like wherever these fingers stretch.
Your point is valid. And these fingers exist. They aren't unique to this redistricting effort. They exist currently. They've existed in all of our city lines forever. I mean, I remember a big event in Scuttle in Houston 25-ish years ago. There, like a canal connected the Woodlands with one city count, right? Like, and I know this is an Austin show, right? But they were just trying to keep basically one city council district in the city of Houston conservative. And this happens at the city level, and then it happens at the county level when we break things. So it just
and the
is
line
what it
has
is.
to be somewhere. Like
that's right.
There's always the graphic also of somebody standing with one foot in one district and the other in the other. And it's like, well, there's a line. So you're going to be doing that anywhere.
However, look, I think a bigger discussion probably needs to be had about what are we trying to do with this? Are we just trying to, if the D's control all of California, are they just going to slice and dice as many as they can get to muck up Washington, D.C.? And if the Republicans control Texas, are they going to, because really, it's a failure for the Republicans in Texas, in my opinion, to get their messaging straight, right? Gavin Newsom has this incredible message right now. Oh, we're going to go and go from 80-20 split to even more, like a 90-10 split, because we have to buttress Texas. Whereas Texas should have just come out and said, look at these violations, right? Look at California, which is like a 60-40 state. It's an 80-20 delegation. Look at this abuse in Illinois. Look at this abuse in Texas. We can't lower taxes at the federal level because all these D's from these states who have broken the system and violated the rules are gumming it up.
Okay, but that's not how it all started. I mean, the reason why this is, and we'll talk about the quorum break and get into that, which is now over. House Dems are back. But the break, what started this whole thing, right, was President Donald Trump saying, I want 5 more GOP seats. And then the discussion was, well, where are you going to find those? And he's like, Texas. The Texas Tribune did some reporting on this. There was already going to be a special session for the legislature. So Governor Abbott did not want to add redistricting to that. And then he got a call from the president and was, kind of talked into presumably adding it to the agenda. And you've been around former governors and people high in politics when they were facing like pressure from somebody like, maybe the president, I'm thinking. So I'm just curious, like, what do you think that behind the scenes was really like? Like, did it take much to convince Abbott to do this, or were Texas Republicans just kind of ready to give Trump like whatever he wanted? And, because there are some in the House who are very, very pro-Trump and kind of give the impression that they'll take his agenda as far as they can.
So, big disclaimer, I wasn't in the room. I can only speculate, right? You're right. I've been in a lot of these rooms in moments like this. Trump is just so wildly popular within the Republican Party that everybody is falling over themselves to say, I'm more Trump than you. I'm with you. I've been with you all the time, all the way through. It's not in Governor Abbott's nature. It hasn't been historically, but I don't think he had much option. And unlike other presidents, President Trump is willing to go out there and use a bully pulpit and call on people to do it. And who wanted this the least? Ironically, will be Republican U.S. House members from Texas. 100%. They won't ever admit to it, but guarantee that's it. Why? Because they all have really safe districts, and they've got to give up some of their Republican votes, and like, oh my.
It puts them at risk for losing their
100%.
seats.
In the future, it makes it more difficult for them.
Because in order to create more Republican districts, you're having to carve into their
75, 80% safe districts that suddenly become 65. Absolutely. So they're the number one folks who didn't want it. The number two, probably the House leadership, right? Like, they had to know that this was going to happen. And number three was probably Governor Abbott. But nobody's going to go talk about it, right?
And why would Abbott be against it?
Because it's so political and it requires so many favors and so difficult, and you just can't make anybody happy, right? Everybody is basically unhappy after a redistricting map is issued, period.
But usually it just happens once every 10 years.
That's exactly right. But that's less and less. I don't know if that's even the norm anymore. A number of states have been forced to do it. And by the way, New York had to go and do it recently in the last few years. The courts will intervene. Folks are electing to do it. Texas did it 20-ish years ago. Much like I would suggest that the feds criminalize a lot of aspects of politics and started targeting which party was in control by DOJ, started targeting others. It appears that we're now doing this in reapportionment, and we do need to have a bigger debate, a national debate. How do we want to do it? Is it right and fair?
Like, what's the future? Yeah.
Yeah, because this is a little bit much.
Yeah. So back to this kind of play-by-play here. You know, you agree kind of with the public narrative that was Trump asks Abbott concedes.
That is the narrative.
Yeah. Okay.
But Republicans are just bad on messaging. They should have just stepped out and said, we have no choice. We want to lower taxes. We want to control the border. We want to create jobs. And we have such a tight margin because New York, Illinois, and California cheated. Right? Like that, really, that's what they should have said. It's shocking. Yeah. We're such bad communicators.
But instead, they're like, we're going to do these 17 other things and also redistricting.
Yes.
Is there any daylight, I mean, at this point, between Abbott and Trump, do you think? Or is it really just this, you call it admiration. I'm also curious if you think it might be some fear involved for that bully pulpit.
Absolutely. Everyone's afraid. Everyone's afraid. He can just tweet and mobilize a third of the electorate, period. I don't see daylight between Governor Abbott and President Trump on this. And that would be my counsel to him. Don't allow daylight. Political counsel. There's no upside for Governor Abbott opposing that.
Mm-hmm.
None.
Yeah. And I'm also curious, like, we're going into the midterms. That's what this is all about for 2026. It's going to be Ken Paxton versus Cornyn, right? And then we're going to apparently have Lloyd Doggett and Greg Casar against each other. What other kind of political dynamics do you think people should be aware of that are like a little behind the scene, like some inside baseball sort of stuff we should be paying attention to?
Well, we'll see if Senator Cornyn chooses to go all the way. Wouldn't surprise me if he removes himself from the contest at some point in the next 6 weeks or
all the way to the election.
Yeah, because it isn't posed well. It's just positioned poorly for him. He's been up there 25 or 30 years. And I suspect one way or the other, Wesley Hunt, a congressman out of Houston, comes in to that primary as well for the Senate. Wouldn't surprise me if Chip Roy starts running for Attorney General. Wouldn't surprise me if that field expands quite a bit. The real question is, will Democrats go and do anything? The Democratic Party in Texas has just been so politically incapable. It's almost shocking, right? There's big, easy mainstream issues that these guys could go and take advantage of, and they're still talking about, losing issues, basically. So that's the only upside of Republicans being such bad communicators on this redistricting is that Democrats are still, they're still talking about men and women's sports. Like, it's a 90-10 issue and it doesn't sell. They're still talking about bathrooms instead of talking about issues that really the Republicans have given them that could motivate the 10% of the swing.
Interesting. Okay, well, speaking of Democrats, they are back now. There were lots of allegations or threats that were thrown at them by Republicans during the special to try to bring them back. A lot of they're going to be arrested. They're going to, have to pay these $500 a day fines. Representing Austin, Donna Howard was part of the quorum bust. Representative Vicki Goodwin and Cheryl Cole were also Austin reps who were all part of the quorum bust. So what can we expect as far as punishments that these members will face for breaking quorum?
That's a really difficult question to answer. There'll have to be some type of punishment, and there'll be questions about the national fundraising and Beto. Is it bribery? Effectively paying fines for them. The rules were changed in the Texas House at the beginning of the last session to incorporate some material punishments for situations such as this. And Donna Howard, she's a powerful member, right? She's a longtime Democrat, has much of Austin. She's on appropriations. She's vice chair of one of the subcommittees. Speaker Burrows gave Democrat vice chair posts and funding as well for their committee staffs, which is the first time vice chairs have gotten these. He largely was elected or aided tremendously, at least, by Democrats. And this will be interesting because there will be an outcry by conservative activists across the state that grows to give them, the fleeing Ds, a proper punishment. And what that is obviously subjective. So does the speaker's coalition, does he shift and rely more on Republicans and start discounting some of the Democrats, start stripping them of some of these special privileges that they've gotten thus far? Perhaps.
Right.
My gut is I doubt it, right? I just don't, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me if you're trying to control power in that chamber. Why? You got what you wanted and move on, but then he's going to be in a bit of a pinch if the activists and party use it against him.
Right.
We'll
and
see.
Nobody wants to be accused of not using retribution by this president.
We'll just see.
Yeah. If there is some power stripping away, it could affect our representation,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This train will move along with redistricting. It's the priority legislation. It's already passed a big hurdle in the Senate. I think it's already out of committee there. So, this will happen. But the Democrats are absolutely claiming victory here. And, speaking of messaging, they're saying, we killed the corrupt special session. They did all of these things that they set out to do. They've changed the entire 2026 landscape. And, basically, while maybe the Texas thing is going to happen, the map is going to happen. Do you think that, you're a consultant, if the Democrats were your client, which I know is when pigs fly, but would you say this is a victory for them, or would you?
I would claim it. Look, I'd go out there and claim it as a victory. And to some extent it is. They drew a big national spotlight to it. They stalled things 30 days, so make it more difficult to implement pre the election. Do we have to move the primary election because of this? Who knows?
Wait, why?
Well, because they'll go past new maps and then perhaps be litigated for some period of time.
Oh, okay.
And they're playing out the clock.
Got it.
They use it to raise tremendous amounts of national money, right? Beto got a cause to reinsert himself on the issue. What I think the great loss for Democrats is and will be, we're now Governor Pritzker's people. We're now Gavin Newsom's people. Well, Illinois is in the tank. California is in the tank, at least from the perspective of Texans and the swings who live here. Many of them fled states like that, higher taxes, poor, homelessness, all of these things that came here. And then if, in fact, Gavin Newsom and any of these other people, California, Illinois, New York, or otherwise, change their districts and gerrymander them more from an 80-20 to, let's say, a 90-10, it is going to be just a nuclear explosion. It's going to be hung around their necks over the next 18 months because it's fundamentally unfair.
So, if this is who if this is who your model is, they're going to attack that. Is that what you're saying?
If you are in a state like California that call it 60-40, which is generous, and you're currently 80-20 and you go to 90-10, that's just fundamentally unfair to all Americans, whether you're a soft R, a soft D, or most importantly, the swings.
It is interesting that, like, while Texas Republicans are allowed to align so strongly with President Donald Trump, even though Texas Republicans used to be kind of their own brand, it's not, you're saying like Texas Democrats should not be aligning themselves with these kind of national Democrats.
No, I think it's good for Texas Democrats. I think it's bad for the Democratic Party because it's going to, so it's stage one versus stage two. Right here, stage one. Republicans in Texas really failed on the messaging in stage one. Right? They talked about, hey, it's a dereliction of duty. These guys have to come back.
Right. It went like really hard, like let's punish them. And
that's right. Instead of saying we have a duty to America to do this because California cheated, Illinois cheated, and as a result, we can't lower taxes. We can't close the border because they're gumming up the war. Like, then you get to debate, did they cheat, did they not cheat, California, New York, and Illinois.
And it puts the fight on, 100%. Or the bad guy spotlight on somebody else.
Again, like we have controlled, the Republican Party has controlled the state for 30 years and has lost skills. The talent is in marginal states. Give me in Ohio, Wisconsin. It's just crazy. It's just nuts.
That's good for business. So that's stage one. Stage one goes to the Democrats.
Yep, and stage two, which ultimately will be the most important because it's national, will go to the Republicans and to independents because it will be seen as unfair. So Gavin Newsom's going to go and pass his maps. He's going to go from 80-20 to 90-10 in a state that has 40% plus Republicans. And they have 10% of the, whoa. Like it's a weapon that is, again, they're tripping over themselves in the short term.
Like, that's the game now, isn't it? The game is now redraw your districts to fit your partisan slant. How do you feel about now and how do other Republicans see this? Like, is this where we want redistricting to go? Is just these kind of constant, redrawing of lines based on who's in power? Is that the system?
Well, that's probably the system we have currently. I mean, look at New York and Illinois and California. They just did this 3 years ago. They're all 80-20 states.
Right.
Even though, 40% plus. Illinois is like 48% Republican, 52D, and it's an 80-20 state, or 75-25. So, look, that has already happened. And Texas is now, if it picks up 5, it's going to go 80-20. Right? That's the split. Texas is joining California, Illinois, and New York. Big states that are 80-20 is about the party in control. That equals parity to some extent.
Because now it's as bad as what you say the Democrats have done. Even
though it's 3-1. It's 3 big Democratic states to 1 R state. So the math at the U.S. House doesn't work, but the argument works. And if California goes and is more abusive, 90-10, great.
Because then so it's just going to be a tit for tat. Like,
might be. I say great because we'll go into Wisconsin, a swing state. We'll go into Michigan. We'll go into Ohio and say, here's what this guy did at his home state. He's so fundamentally unfair. It's a 9-1 advantage. Right.
I mean, it's great if you are trying to win Republican support and
trying to win independent support. Actually, that's my point.
Okay.
Like the 10% of the people who are true independents in any of these jurisdictions are like, wait, 90-10 when 45% are Republicans? Well, that's abusive. That's a very powerful narrative relative to fairness. The guy's fundamentally unfair.
And why hasn't Texas done this? Like, if it is something that we can do, why haven't we done this before?
That is the question that should have been asked by the media for the last 3.5 weeks, and I praise you for asking it. And that is the right and appropriate question. Wait a second. If Texas has this power and there's such a disparity among all the other big states, why didn't Texas already engage?
Right.
That's a fair and right question. And in fact, had it begun with President Trump saying, hey, Texas is the outlier, here's the pie charts, bam, 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 totally different messaging.
But instead it was, there's an opportunity here
to pick up 5. And all we're doing is bringing it into a parity with New York, California, Illinois.
But nobody has said parity. Nobody has said parity.
Nobody, because we're terrible communicators. The party's terrible communicators.
So, but you've said this also, like you've alluded to this at least, that like maybe we need to pause and reevaluate, like what do we want? Is that where you were kind of going with that?
Well, we as a society, I think that's a fair question, right? Are we just all going to fight for control of these state legislatures so we can do 80-20 or 90-10 splits or not? Or the court's going to say, guess what? It isn't just race, it's also party affiliation. I doubt it, but they might. There's an opportunity here because currently, the standard is a minority group large enough in a geographically compact area enough in a district that they could reasonably elect a candidate of their choice. And that's a somewhat vague standard, right? Is a minority group politically cohesive, which has changed a lot because we used to run on an assumption all Latinos are Ds. Well, look at the Valley, right? Like,
oh my God. Okay, you're perfectly segueing into my last question on this.
Sure.
So the whole redrawing of all of the districts is basing the future on how people voted for president this last election, right? How does anybody know how people will vote next time and not think that maybe Trump too was an anomaly for voters?
Well, of course we don't. We can't predict the future. But we can look at historical norms. And traditionally, once someone votes in a particular shows up and votes, right? Because half the registered voters don't show up. These districts aren't, of course, based on registered voters or anything else. It's by human beings. It's a human count, right? But we have historical events. We have historical information. We know that if somebody actually shows up and votes, then they're exponentially more likely to do it again. Like getting someone who's registered but doesn't participate to take that first leap into voting is a very high bar. I've tried it many, many times, and so have a lot of other people, and we've generally failed.
And once you get past that first hurdle, then they're voters for life.
Or they're much more likely to come in. And the people who have voted in 2 of the last 3 or 3 of the last 3, you can just bank that they're coming in.
Right.
So it depends on how you want to slice your data. But can we say that the whole Valley is going to go Republican again like it did last time, but for, I think, one county on the border that was really close, but the D's kept it? No, we can't say that. But it's presumably they want the border to be secure and closed, right? They want Well, we know the messaging points. Yeah. And as odd as this sounds, I brought it up early in the show in the narrative as an example. 1/3 of Trump's presidential funding, or right around 1/3, was spent on men and women's sports because it was so effective. And so you got to think $1 in $3 were hitting in the Valley as well. And on those boards, look, they're trying to put men into women's sports. And it was just a wholesale rejection of some of these outlier social causes that have become the dogma or the symbol of the Democratic Party. It's just not what it was. It's shocking to me because there's a lot of mainstream ammunition for the Democrat to go and organize around in Texas and elsewhere. They just haven't. They're on outlier issues.
Keep going after the wrong issues.
They're on outlier issues. America's just not with you there.
Right. And so as long as the Republican message stays aligned with those more mainstream issues.
Just even a little bit more aligned, right? Does it have to 5% more? Okay. Because now people are doing the lesser of evils quite often. Yeah. That's what the data shows.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this was fascinating, I must say, Anthony. Is there anything else that you want to add that you think is, important for Austinites to know or to think about?
So Austin, look, we've grown up. We've grown up as a city in size and as a community in size, and we're going to end up with more than just Lloyd Doggett. He has basically owned Austin for so long and has been small enough that it made sense, and he had seniority, he could kind of fight in there, and the D's had enough in the Texas legislature to protect it. But we're a real city, and we're about to surpass San Antonio in not too long, and we're going to end up with 4 or 5 different congressmen. It's going to be blended, and that's just how it is. It's how San Antonio's been. Dallas and Houston have been 5 or more, and they're blended. That's part of the growing pains of being a big top 10 city in America.
Yeah, thanks again, Anthony. This was really fascinating.
Thank you.
So, take care.
We appreciate Austin.
That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to Anthony's website in our show notes. And if you enjoyed the show, please tell a friend, leave us a review, rate the show, and don't forget to subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.